have one, I'll try to give you another idea of what you could use. You'll only need one, okay? So one, it can be any kind of ball that'll work for a little self-massage. It's only for one thing, like I said, so if you don't have it, you're doing the recording, you could probably skip that part. And then a blanket, and probably a block, okay? If you don't have a block, a rolled up firm blanket or two can substitute, all right? And let's begin with a taquito roll of our blanket. So you want it to be firm. I think I'm actually gonna add a second blanket on top of mine. So I open it up, I folded it in half. You might not have these kind of Mexican blankets. You might be working with something else. So you might have to like just make do with the blanket that you have. I'm gonna do two, just because these are they're a little flimsy and I want them a little firmer. Okay, so I've just lined my two up and I'm rolling from one end to the other. So I've got a very long, but it's still got some height roll. Okay. And I'm putting it perpendicular to, not perpendicular, parallel to the long edges of my mat. And I'm going to put it along my spine, but I'm going to sit on one end of the blanket. Let me clean up this mess a little bit. You won't need your strap and your ball until we sit up, so you can set those aside. And so I'm sitting on this blanket roll, and then my head is also going to go on it. And depending on how your neck feels, you may need something below your neck, like a second pillow or something else, okay? And the knees bent is the way to be on here. It just gives you more stability. So your feet are on the floor and your whole spine from your tailbone up to the back of your neck is aligned with the blanket. It might not be touching it because of the curves of your spine. I like to take my feet a little wide and let the knees lean against one another. And now noticing all the places that you're making contact with the floor. So your feet, what part of your arms and your hands. And then the blanket roll. You might feel where you're making contact by your tailbone and pelvis. And then what parts of your back are making contact. Your upper back, the back of your head. And then you could take 2 brief inhales through the nose and then blow out the mouth like you're blowing out through pursed lips. And then again. Long exhale if you can. Then you could always transition to a sigh on the exhale, or even to breathing out through your nose if you prefer. So it's a bit of a shoulder opener. You might feel that, you might not, just in that your shoulders are falling back relative to the middle of your chest being lifted up. Now coming into more of a rhythmic breath where you inhale wide and exhale long. And with your arms, I've got mine almost out from my shoulders, but yours can be wherever they feel best. And you might experiment with it like a snow angel. You might start to take them along your sides of your shoulders and up by your ears, and they might not be able to, your hands might not be able to touch the floor the whole time. You might find that your palms can't stay facing the ceiling. It might not feel comfortable, or it might be painful. So you can always change that as well, or move the wrists around and see how it feels. Let's do a few of those, some more of those snow angels. Being curious about what you feel, where you feel tightness, where you feel openness. Good. And now let's take the arms up toward the ceiling, and we will reach the fingertips toward the ceiling with your palms facing one another, but with your hands shoulders distance. Okay. And as you exhale, let's try to sink the shoulders down toward the floor while keeping the arms straight. And you can always watch me if you're not sure. It's really a retraction of the shoulder blade. So it's like it's pinching around your rolled up blanket. I can feel myself squeeze the blanket when I do that. Keep breathing, of course. And then protract, reach the fingers toward the ceiling, straight up, and repeat. So it's just another way to practice some shoulder blade mobility, and it gives the feedback of the blanket. So the blanket gives your brain some feedback that you can feel if you're doing it or not with the retraction and the protraction. Let's try just a couple more of those. And then next time you reach up toward the ceiling, let's open the arms out, straight out to the sides with the palms facing up if that works for you. And just notice, so for me, I've got some tightness around the nerves in this area lately. So when I really reach my fingertips away from my shoulders and try to spread my hands, I can feel a bit of a nerve glide, a nerve stretch. And I might back off of that just by softening fingers, softening elbows, and then come back into it. Stretch through the hands, move fingers away from elbows, and then soften, and just kind of noticing what's there. Okay, and now you can turn the palms downward and try the same thing. It might feel quite different. Reaching fingers away from elbows, palms flat, and then soften and relax, and try that a couple times. Good. And then from here, we'll roll off of your taquito and take it off to the side while coming down onto your back. You can always pad your head and neck with a pillow or a blanket. And let's start doing some pelvic rocks. Okay, so from here, I'm pressing my low back down. Let's use the exhale for that today. And as you inhale, I'm rocking the pelvis forward, and now there's a space between my low back and the floor. And just repeat. Good. Now, could you rest somewhere between the two? And everybody's pelvis has different ranges of motion and mobility. And if you're really tightened up, you might find that it's hard for you to keep a space between your low back and the floor. That low back lumbar curve might not be there as much anymore. So just try and see if you can do it without pain, moving the hip bones forward into neutral. And now we'll try, so it's like our pelvic clock which many of you have done with me before. So if you had the face of a clock on your belly, facing upward, 12 would be above your belly button, 6 by the pubic bone, 3 on the left hip, and 9 on the right hip. And we were moving between 6 and 12 when we did those pelvic rocks. Now could you try to go between 3 and 9 without moving your knees around? So it's like if you had back pockets on your pants, and it's like when I lift 9 off the floor more, it's like I get light on that right big pocket. And then I'm going to press that. So if I had like a piece of hard candy in my back pocket, I'd be pressing it down to the floor, and the left side is lifting up more. It's not coming off the floor. Okay, my butt is not leaving the floor. It's just getting lighter and pressing down. Okay. And this can get into the deeper muscles of the core. I'm not feeling my core work very much, but that's what's making this happen, right? So I'm not trying to use my glutes to make it happen. Let's do a couple more of those, shimmying back and forth, exploring that motion. And then just come back to the center and do a few pelvic rocks again. Good. And then let's stretch arms overhead above you toward the floor. And exhale, bring your right knee in. Give it a squeeze. Left leg can be bent or straight. Good. And now let's inhale, open that right knee out to the right using right hand. And exhale, come back to center. And holding knee with left hand, reaching right arm to the side, inhaling, bringing knee across, and right hip can come off the floor into a twist. And then exhale back to the center. And holding behind the leg, inhaling as you stretch the leg toward the ceiling. And then exhale, bending knee, foot to floor, straighten out leg. And now let's inhale, arms up and over. Exhale, left knee in. Inhale, left hand takes it out to the left. Exhale, center. Switching hands, reaching left arm out to the side. Inhale, twist. Exhale, center. Holding behind leg. Inhale, straighten it up. Exhale, bend and bring it to the floor. Let's go again. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, knee in. Inhale, knee to the right. Exhale, center. Inhale, coming into the twist. Exhale, center. Inhale, stretching leg up. Exhale, bringing the leg down. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, left knee in. Inhale, knee to the left. Exhale, center. Inhale to twist. Exhale, center. Inhale to stretch it up. And exhale, bringing it down, and let's pause with legs straight. And just notice what your alignment is like in your pelvis and low back when your legs are straight compared to when they were bent. You know, do you have a low back curve? Is there space between your low back and the floor or not? You know, just becoming aware of that. And then taking a breath in and out. Good. I'm going to bring the knees to bent again. Good. And inhale and exhale. Lifting both feet off the floor with knees over hips if you can. Now, if this is too much and you start arching your back a lot, then bring one foot down, okay? Otherwise, let's try to draw these front ribs right here down toward the back ribs and the back ribs down to the floor so you feel some core engagement. And you can also touch your abdominals and just try to feel if they're turned on as well. So you can hang out here or even with one foot down, or you can interlace hands behind the head and exhale, let elbows curl around ears and lift head and shoulders up off the floor. This will make it easier to draw your ribs down. Keep breathing. Now, you could stay here, keep drawing your ribs toward the floor, or you could slowly start to move your right toes in the direction of the floor. The knee comes forward on the exhale, and then inhale back up. And then try the other side. Inhale back up. Back to the first. And the left. Good, and then let's lower feet and head. So for me, that felt like a lot of work. And I tend to do core work a lot, but it still felt like a lot of work. So if you're really drawing those ribs down, not cranking on your neck, relaxing your jaw, hopefully you're feeling some core work. We were talking about some of that hip clunking before we started recording. And often what I'll find is that if the core can be properly engaged, then there's less clunking. So for example, let's just do a test right now. Let's keep your left foot on the floor, knee bent, and just extend the right leg up toward the ceiling, okay? Inhale. Now as you exhale, can you attempt to engage your abdominal muscles as you slowly start to lower the leg only as much as you can before the clunk. If you get a clunk, you might not know what that is because you might not have it, okay? And if you get the clunk, just pause there and come back up, okay? And then you can try it again. You could try it this time without engaging your core and just see if there's any difference. For me, it really depends on the day too. Right? So there's a lot of factors. It's not just your core. And like for me today, I'm not getting much clunking on that right hip, but often I do. Okay, now let's try the other side and extend the left leg toward the ceiling. And the first time we're going to try to engage the abdominals and draw up from your pelvic floor. So it's not like you're tightening down toward the floor with your navel. You're tightening up from the pelvic floor upward. Oop, and there I just got mine right there. And I got almost to the floor and I'm going to come back up. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's just your own anatomy. If it doesn't hurt, it's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? I've talked to so many PTs about this issue as well as lots of movement specialists, and everybody has a little bit of a different opinion, but mostly it's not necessarily bad, but it could indicate something with your alignment or your core or different things. So we'll work on a few different things with it. Okay, now you could try it without engaging the core at all. If you haven't already, just see if it's any different. It might be the same. Mine's about the same place, so I don't think it's that for me today. Good. And then went away. Okay, let's windshield wiper. Just let it go, widen the feet, widen the arms, go back and forth. So again, we're getting some pelvic mobility here as well. Good. And let's roll all the way over onto one side and press up. Onto hands and knees. Of course, if you can't bear weight on your hands, you can sit in a chair. We're going to do some work with the pelvis in a quadruped position. So here, let's focus on just the pelvis, so not a full cat and cow. So watch what I'm doing here. First, I'm going to tilt my tail up. You see that right there? Tail is up toward the ceiling, and now I'm going around it. Now my low back, I can't totally isolate my pelvis, but I'm just trying to, okay? So pelvis, tail up, tail under, tail up. And you can do it with your breath too, if you want to. And just notice, like, how much movement can you get in there? Some people have a harder time getting into that area, and others don't, right? And it's noticing for you. And now if you want to do some full cats and cows, go for it if that feels good to you. Good, and now let's leave tail up. And I've got my toes flat for this first part. If that bothers your feet or ankles, you can put a rolled up blanket below the ankles, okay? I'm gonna try to keep the tail up and try to notice how far you can go back before the tail starts to tuck under like this, okay? Before it starts doing this, okay? And then come up and just, you can always do this in front of a mirror too, and then you get the feedback if you're not able to tell. And then it may be different when you tuck your toes. So you can tuck the toes under, get a little foot stretch in a different direction, and same thing. Well, now the heels are higher, of course, so you might be able to get closer to them. Good, and then let's come up, and so hips are above knees. Our tails untucked, and then we'll take the arms forward. So the hips are going to stay where they are rather than sit back towards the hips. Toward the heels. Stretching out the arms and the spine. Following your breath in. And long exhale. And again. Okay. Now, if you've got two blocks, we'll use both. If you do not, I'm going to give you some ideas. I'm going to take, and if you can't bear weight on the knees, this one's going to be a little tricky for you, so you might have to skip it or do something different during it. What I'm going to do is put one block below my right knee and the other block below my left hand, like this. Okay, so like this. So you'll feel all wacky. Now, say you only have one block. Then you could use below the knee. I would probably choose the knee for this. You could use a pillow below the knee. Just try to get some height to it so it's like lifted up higher than the other knee. Okay, so if you only have one block. If you have 0 blocks, you could use pillow below the knee and then a book or two below the hand. Okay, so get yourself set up in this uneven quadruped position or tabletop. And it might feel a little funky, right? We're going to cat and cow here. And just notice. Now, next time you come to tail up, let's stay there. The rest of your neck and everything can just be neutral. And if you can press down on your right knee and your left hand, and see when I do that, I'm floating my right hand off the floor and my left knee off the floor. Oh, I've got a little core action going on, okay? You can just see if you can and then come back down. Really protract that shoulder blade to be able to do it. You could also use a fist if your wrists are bothering you, right, on the block, okay? Good, and then coming back down to the floor, but still with the wonky situation. We're just going to lift just the knee off the floor, making the pelvis even in the back. You might even be able to feel back there. Feel the core engage. Take a breath. Feel your right hip working. And then come down. Good. Do whatever you want to do for a moment just to take a break. Maybe it's roll the wrists or sit back. And then we're going to switch sides. Okay. So this time, left knee, right hand or fist, using whatever you've got. And we'll start with everything grounded on something, cat and cow. Whew, and this side feels way different to me. You notice if it feels different to you. Okay. And you can come to the tail up, right? And then we'll try to float the knee and the hand, possibly protract that shoulder blade. You'll feel your core engage, breathing. You can always come down whenever you need to and try it again. Good, and then coming down. And now we'll float just the knee, okay? So get everything else on the floor or block, and then float just the right knee. If you can feel that left hip working, you might notice if you can feel that you're flat across the back of the pelvis. Good, and then come out of it. Good, just set the blocks wherever you want. You can use them to help you get up if you want. I'm gonna come up onto my feet now. Can go through a downward dog. Can use a bear get up. On your way, grab a ball. Just stand for a moment. Okay. Notice how it feels to just stand. You can take your ball in one of your hands, arms hanging down at your sides. Actually, you can set your ball on something for a moment, your chair or something. Let's just notice how we feel across the front of the chest, okay, as far as tightness goes. So let's inhale and open up the arms and try to clasp them behind the back. Now you can bend your elbows if you'd like. You can put the knuckles on the sacrum and try to squeeze the elbows back toward one another. Notice I'm resisting doing this with my neck, okay? I'm trying to keep the back of my head in line. Good. All right, release. And then let's grab your strap. If you have a stretchy strap, use that. If you don't, use whatever you have. Okay. And we'll roll the upper arm bones back like this. So I've got the strap in my fist. My arms are going to be at my outside of my legs. Okay, so notice I don't have slack in my strap between them, okay? And now I'm going to roll those upper arm bones back to open the chest without popping my chest. So I'm not back bending, okay? I'm just using my external rotation of the upper arm bones getting wide across the collarbones. Feeling my upper arm muscles working to do that, okay? If you have slack in your strap, you won't feel that as much. Okay, good. Then rest. Okay, now we'll do a little shoulder flossing. So we're gonna inhale, come up. Now you might have to take your strap, take your hands very wide on your strap to be able to go down a little or a lot in the back. If you have a stretchy strap, you just pull on it, right? But if you've got a static strap, you may need to widen your hands and up, and just doing that a few times, okay? So we're just flossing the shoulders here. Good. Now let's try like around the world flosses. like this. Kind of going around one side and then diagonal the other way, and then you can reverse that. So you're just getting different angles and noticing where you're tight. Of course, you're not forcing anything, right? All right. Now let's throw our strap off to the side and grab the ball. We're going to open up in the pecs a little bit. We're going to focus on the pec major, but we might get a little into the minor. So you can start by doing this. Let's just do it on one side. So pick a side you'll start with and use the ball with just your hand to begin. And I'm rolling it all the way from the sternum underneath the collarbone. So right underneath there and out to the side. You can use either hand, whatever, probably the opposite hand will work a little better actually. Okay, you can go up and down to, you might find some tight spots in the front of the deltoid. The pec minor is really kind of in there, okay? And then you can take this to the wall and do the same thing. So let's stay on the same side. Is put pressure into the wall, any amount, and do the same thing. So at first I just roll from side to side. This helps with posture and alignment, but it also, when you're really tight in the front of the chest and shoulders, it affects how you feel in the back of your shoulders, okay? And your arms even too, okay? It can affect your neck. So what I like to do, I'm going to show on the opposite side just to show you, is I like to pause in a tight spot. Actually, I can't really do that because I have my microphone there, but I pause in a spot with pressure against the wall. I know, I'll just go to this wall. Here we go. So I pause in a tight spot and then I wind the ball up, like twist it while keeping pressure. And then I'm going to move that arm that I've been working on around in different angles. I might also move my neck. So I'm taking that arm back behind me. I'm finding another new spot. It's like a pin. I'm pinning the tissue and then stretching it. Good. All right, and now you can come off of that side and just let the arms hang. If you want, you can close your eyes for a moment so you can tune in and just feel the two sides. All right, and then when you're ready, let's just use the hand to start. You can always stay with just the hand if the wall is too much pressure. Going from sternum out, tracing underneath the collarbone, just noticing what's going on in this whole area. For me, I've got some nerve issue going on my left side, and so I even feel it when I do this. Usually I feel it when I do things on the back, but I'm feeling it here too. A little bit of tingling, so I'm going to take it easy. Just paying attention. And then when you're ready to take it to the wall, you can take it to the wall. I'll switch this mic to the other side. I think. Okay. Good. And just explore. And for me, this side is completely different. So you can, kind of go up and down a little bit, like a zigzag in and out, or back and forth. When you find a spot, you can pause, wind up the ball, and then stretch the arm back if you'd like. You can move the neck around. Ooh, Okay. And then coming out of it when you're ready, you can set your ball to the side. You won't need it again. And just let the arms hang. Okay. Notice. Try to press down through your feet and stand tall in Tadasana pose. Mountain pose. Now, let's add a little effort in, and we'll just like when we had the strap. Imagine you have that strap. You don't have to clench the fists or anything, but roll those upper arm bones back without popping the chest or doing anything with your hips. Good. And then relax. All right. Now from here, let's do a little bit with the pelvis like we worked with on the floor. So we're doing some, chest and pelvis today. And I've got my knees bent to make this easier. And what I'm doing is that pelvic tuck and untuck like we did on our backs. Okay. And you could always do this, or you can probably feel it with your hands, how much movement you're able to get. Keep breathing. I'm just breathing whenever. Notice how that feels. Good. And then you can even just come through the center, relax for a moment, and you can try that 3 and 9 position as well. Okay, so I'm trying to move this one forward and this one forward. I don't have the floor to push into anymore. Okay, and see if you got any of that movement. Good, and then just take a rest. All right. Now, when you're standing, just do a few jumps and then stop. And notice how you would normally stand. Okay, and notice if your behind is behind you, or if you tend to tuck it under, right? If you tend to do a little more of this, can you allow your butt to relax, feel like your glutes are loose and soft, right? You don't need them to be tight right now. And like you're allowing the full width of your butt to be back there, okay? Just feel your toes on the ground. And now let's tuck the tail under, do a little gripping in the butt, and notice that pushes the front of the hips forward, okay? And then come back and relax. So you can notice throughout your day when you're standing how you tend to stand. So our hip joints are, if you find the place in the crease of your hips, okay, that if you were to now squat, letting your butt go back, so not doing this with your butt, letting your butt go back and squat, the kind of the deep area of the crease is where your hip joint is. Okay, that is where, if I had a model, skeleton model I could show you, but the femur bone comes up and the ball of the hip socket comes in. I wish I had some sort of stick or thing to show you in here, up and into here, okay? And when your pelvis is untucked, right, so boom, back, the hip socket, or the ball of the hip socket can roll back into the acetabulum, which is like the groove that the hip socket sits in, right? So it's meant to go back and in there. Of course, everybody's is shaped a little differently. Some people have more shallow sockets, right? So they naturally, their hips get pushed forward and there might be more clunking in those people, right? And therefore, they end up with more hip arthritis too, unfortunately, okay? So think, every time you go down, let's do a few more squats. They don't have to be deep, however deep you want. Every time you go down, picture your hip sockets gliding back in, or the ball of the hip gliding back in the hip socket, okay? And when you come up, it just goes to neutral. If you were to then back bend, it pushes them forward, right? Going down and up and down. You can come up and not push your hips forward, but still tighten the glutes just for some exercise, right? So you could go down, come up, tighten your butt, but notice the difference. I'm not doing this. I'm just doing this. Okay, I come up and I tighten my glutes. Good. Okay, take a rest and let's grab the strap again. Let's do some flossing again. Oh, feel your feet on the floor. First, just find a spot. Notice if it feels any easier or more warmed up now or not for you. Remember, we're not letting any slack come into the strap the entire time. Right? So even when you come down in front, I'm still pulling the strap, or I've got it so that it's wide enough so there's no slack, and then you can go around the world. Good. All right, and then you can toss your strap. Notice how your shoulders feel. Notice how your hips feel. Let's take the feet about shoulder width or a little wider. And now as we lean down to one side and feel your hip pushing the opposite direction, and then come up, and same thing, other side. Maybe you want to linger on one side or the other. You can always stretch the arm too if that's something you want to do. Good. All right. Now let's get our chair at the front of your mat with the seat facing you. Okay. So we talked about the ball of the hip socket, hip joint, going back when our tail is untucked, right? So that was true in cat and cow, right? When we try to forward fold, we're also going to try to let those balls of the hip joint go back in their socket. So let me just give you an example. So if I'm able to keep my tail lifted because my legs are flexible enough to do that, then it's continuing to go back in that socket, right? If I'm rounding when I come down, I'm not necessarily pressing it way forward because I'm in this position, but it's not getting to go back in the socket, right? It's not going back and in there. So when you start to fold, let's inhale to stand tall. Let's keep hands on legs and then go to the chair. So feel yourself untuck your pelvis and then start to go forward. And when you know that you can't do that anymore because it's pulling on your hamstrings, then bend the knees a little bit to get your hands to the surface, okay? So that you can stay in that tail lifted. There's nothing wrong with rounding. That's fine. It's not a bad movement. It's just that we're working on this today. We're just building awareness around this, okay? It also, the rounding and picking up heavy things doesn't work, right? So we also like to work on this for proper alignment for picking stuff up, right? Okay. So from here, let's inhale, bend the knees and reach the chest forward. Good. And exhale, let's step the right leg back to a lunge and inch the left foot underneath the chair seat. And then just get yourself organized. Like don't put too much weight on your wrists, shoulder blades away from ears. So now we've got our left hip socket rolling back, right? Or the ball of the hip joint rolling back in the socket, right? You can see that. It's back because this knee is bent. And then the right one is just in neutral. Yeah? Okay. Inhale here. Exhale, let's bring that right leg forward, and we're just switching sides. Okay, so now left leg's going back. You're trying to reach your chest forward, and picture, if you can get your mind, I know I didn't show you a picture or a model, so it's a little harder, but you can picture that the ball of that right leg into the hip socket is rolling back and deep into the acetabulum there, and the left one is in neutral. Okay. Inhale, exhale, step it forward, and let's just switch sides again, trying to get our mind in that place. Okay, and switch. And then we're going to switch again. Left leg forward this time. Right hand stays down. And lift the left arm up if it feels okay. Now it doesn't have to go all the way up. It can also come on the hip. So say you've got left shoulder stuff. You could put it on your hip instead. Good. And then after you're there for a breath or two, coming back down. And now left hand on the chair, same leg forward. I'm going to open up to the right with the chest. And the right hip is opening a little too. Good. And then bring it down. Now let's step right leg forward, left leg back. We'll start with left hand down. Okay, that right hip joint where the ball is back in the socket. I'm going to open up to the right. And come back down. And now I'm going to open up to the left. And come back down. All right, let's step the left leg forward and back up the feet a little bit. Let's take a forward fold. So find where that is, where you can relax your upper body and let that round. Your arms could come down to the chair or the floor. And let's experiment with, instead of the weight being in the heels like we do when we squat, typically, let's try to shift your weight toward over the arches of your feet. It'll feel like you're taking it to the balls of your feet, the weight. And it's perfectly fine for you to have bent knees and soft knees here. Let your neck relax. Good, and now let's bend the knees, and you can roll up or you can reach your chest forward and come up. Whatever feels better in your body, let's reach the arms up. And exhale, arms out to the sides and down. Gosh, I really want to do one other thing, but we don't have enough time, so that's okay. We'll do it next week. More hip stuff will be good. Instead, let's go toward the floor. Okay, so let's inhale, reach your arms up. Now, exhale, let's fold again, and picturing those balls of the hips rolling back in the pelvis, okay? And then widening the feet. Last week we worked on getting down in a lunge position. This week we're working on coming down as deep as we can through a squat without pain, okay? So I'm coming down. Now, I might be able to go all the way down, but a lot of people won't, okay? So you can come back up and then drop a knee down, okay? We're gonna come all the way to the floor. Let's come into a supported bridge pose with your rolled up blanket. It will need to be rolled kind of high and firm, not like a taquito, but more like a log or something, a short log, a stump. Or you can take your block, slip it below your hips, rest the back of your pelvis on the block, and breathe. Now you can do For those of you that know different variations on this pose with your legs, feel free to do them if you'd like. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to work on some breath work. I'm just going to leave my legs as is. So I'm going to inhale to a count of 4 through my nose. 360-degree breath through my torso. And then exhale to a count of 6 out through pursed lips. Or longer than 6 if you have a longer breath. And repeat. In for 4 and out for 6. And then as you're ready, you could just breathe out through your nose if you want to. You can come off of your block or your prop at any time. When you come out of that, it might feel good to draw both knees in towards your belly or to windshield wiper the legs side to side. It's doing whatever position feels best to you. And then getting yourself set up for a relaxation position. You can put a blanket over you or behind your head and do any last movements or poses that you'd like to do. And then as you're ready, just taking a sigh. And letting go of as much effort as you can here. Physical and mental effort. Feeling as though you could sink a little bit deeper into the surface below you. Softening around your eyes and your jaw.